Record.
Okay.
Scott was such.
Excellent. So, afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Accountability and Assurance Board. I should make it quite clear at the outset that this is a public meeting, and the whole meeting will be made publicly available for our citizens to view via the OPCC website, with the exception, of course, of any confidential or exempt items. And I shall make it really clear as we progress through the meeting when we reach that point. We'll start then with item number 1 on our agenda, which is apologies for absence. And I know we've got a few more apologies to record for today. So if they could be passed to us, and we'll make sure that they're recorded for the minutes. Item number 2 is to confirm the minutes and the actions from the meeting held on the 3rd of September. So everybody's had an opportunity to view the minutes. Is everybody content that they're a true record?
Yes.
And do we have any updates in relation to the actions? We'll pick those up at the next meeting.
Yeah, there is one update on that.
Okay.
That you did ask for, which was in relation to historic offences. I've got a detailed breakdown of what that looks like in relation to violent offences. It breaks it down into subcategories of type as well. It gives you a good indication of the sort of volumes that we're talking about. Obviously, that's a number, and you're very aware that some of those offences, even though they would show a number, the complexity of some of those investigations, such as a historic rape offence, would be very, very significant. But on a number wise, it would only look as one. But the number of hours obviously go into that. Very significant. It does paint the picture as was requested what that sort of build up looks like.
Okay, thank you for that. That's very helpful. Anything else on that? No? So item number 3 then are the final terms of reference. They've been made available to everybody. Is everybody content with those? Yeah? Excellent. So we'll move on to our substantive items today. And I know that the first point 4A was a verbal update on the forced delivery plan, but I do understand that it's not possible to have that today. So we look forward to receiving the report in November. So thank you for that. We'll move in then to our scrutiny and review of the annual report. And firstly, I'd like to thank everybody for their contributions to this. I recognise the huge amount of work that goes into developing these reports as well. We will take it, Deputy Chief Constable, you'll be really pleased to know that we're going to take it that everybody's read all these reports.
Thank you.
And we're just going to move straight into our scrutiny and our feedback on them as well. So firstly then, the force engagement report. This report was of great interest to me as the Commissioner, and I'm sure to all colleagues, because of the importance of engagement in terms of the pillars that the Chief Constables established. So I'd be very interested to just ask a couple of questions in relation to this report. So perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about how the new engagement strategy is being developed.
It's evolving, just to make you understand that these reports were 24-25, so they're very early on at the development of the strategy. We've now got a Chief Super as head of engagement, and he's working with all the pillars just to make sure that it's aligned to the neighbourhood policing guarantee and the chiefs and your delivery plans and the vision as well. It's still work in progress, but the development that we've made over the past 6 months has been really phenomenal. I think the work that's been done with the neighbourhood matters, the new app that we've got, which is now live, I think that factors quite a lot within the strategy and how we are trying to get that engagement with the communities, with the people of Gwent, much more tangible. I think previously and I think it's very fair to say that we've tried different variations of engagement, and which is shown from the perception surveys that perhaps we weren't getting it right. But I think this new neighbourhood matters and the engagement strategy, I think, is putting us in a really good place. It's still evolving. It's still very much working with all the pillars. The neighbourhood policing guarantee that we've got now is very much embedded within that. So I think the progress that we've made thus far, I think is sort of a testament to going forward. Commissioner, I don't know if you want any more to tell the Lord that you.
Thanks. I think the only thing I'd add to that, which you summed up really well, was that strategy really outlines the three aspects of engagement: the internal engagement with the workforce and the need for that confidence within the workforce to feel valued and feel that they've got a voice. And there are certain things that are being undertaken as we speak, like the female flight path downstairs, where we're giving officers, female officers, confidence to come forward and progress laterally and with promotion. The engagement with our communities, which I think he's already touched on, the positive neighbourhood approach and community activities, and engagement with our victims, which is an essential thing that we need to improve on. We know that we're not where we want to be in relation to some of our victim satisfaction levels. We've got that plan, and we've already put into place the detective super oversees that investigative quality framework as well. And I think there's a whole host of actions that sit under that rein as well, which feed into that overarching engagement strategy. But that's the three pins that are pushing forward.
Okay, thank you for that. Just considering the report that we've got before us, one of the highlights of this report for me was the opportunity that there was within it, which I don't think has been realised, in terms of recognising the contribution that the community support officers make in terms of engagement. And I know, Chief Constable, that's been really clear in terms of the priority around that, and the priority of neighbourhood policing, that building those relationships within the community. And I did feel there was a missed opportunity within this report to really highlight the really important work that goes on with our community support officers, and particularly, I think, the strength of the relationship they build with our citizens in communities. And I wonder if that feedback can be taken on board, please, for next year, and consider the report next year, because in terms of just providing an overview to not just to me as Commissioner, but also for the public in relation to the engagement, this activity that has been undertaken. I think there's a great opportunity there to make people, to enable people to develop a greater awareness of the important role that our community support officers play.
Right, and I think the neighbourhood matters well with the door-to-door surveys, etc. will be enhanced with that face-to-face engagement as well. So I'll pick that up and make sure that is in the
That's great. Thank you for that. Thanks. I really look forward to that, and I appreciate that. And I think next year, perhaps what we would look forward to is perhaps a more fulsome report that really provides that overview for us, especially as we move forward, as you move forward through the year with that pillar as well.
Yeah, I think your observations are right. Commissioner, I think it's a good suggestion about the recommendation about the PTSO we've got. I think, as Nikki said, with it being written at a certain time, I think we've already got a huge bank that if we were writing today, the positive action that, for example, the community action team have taken over the last 4 months and the real impact that they've had on a concentrated area, there's a chance that they'll showcase success.
Has anybody got any further questions on that before we move on to the next report? No. Thank you very much for that, and thank you to the contributors and the authors of the report as well. So we move on then to the next report, which is our data quality annual report. And I really welcome this report. I thought it was quite a comprehensive report, which gave us a really good overview and a sound assurance of the way that Gwent Police monitors and manages crime data recording. And we know, don't we, that in addition to this, that the recent inspection report actually supports this as well. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to everybody for the amount of work that goes on with this. And once again, putting on record the really pleasing outcome of the inspection in relation to that. And it really is pleased to know that there's been this sustained improvement with this. So I don't think that we need to
It's a really positive
Yeah.
story with this, and we've it's been consistent. I know this, as I said, it's 24, 25, but we've consistently seen that throughout 25 as well. With the compliance, this has been really very, very good.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything said, but I suppose the word of warning I think that's worth mentioning now is that we cannot be complacent in relation to this. We know that it is not necessarily going to be forming part of an actual HMI inspection piece itself, but I think what we're all very cognizant of is that at the moment there are a number of reviews that are being undertaken to look at incident recording and crime recording, and I think whatever the direction those take, but those particular reviews go, we cannot afford to lose any pace of our staff really understanding how a high priority this is for us, and the fact that it contributes towards our overarching mission of trust and confidence, having that ethical transparency. So that would be something that we'll be very much keeping alive.
Absolutely. Anybody got any comments or feedback on that one? No? Thank you very much for that. Move on to the next report then, and that is the Victim Service Annual Report. And I do understand in relation to this that clearly this area of service provision has undergone a number of changes, and there are continued improvements associated with this. However, when reviewing the report, I thought there were some aspects of information that might have been reported previously that weren't reported this year, which results in an assurance gap, really, in some aspects of that. So I'm happy to take that up outside of the meeting in terms of the information that we feel would strengthen this report and provide that assurance going forwards. But more generally, perhaps you can give us some more information on what you see as the key challenges that Gwent Police faces in relation to victim care.
Yeah, I think one of the big challenges we face at the moment is the demand that comes into the force control room and frustration really from victims with updates. It's something that we're really focusing on, and we've got work ongoing with looking at new technology going into the force control room to automated updates, but that not losing the face-to-face with victims as well, because officers still have to update, but that will make that process a lot better. And the introduction of the new detective superintendent for victims and quality of investigations, I think that's a massive step forward for us, because we've got that governance and scrutiny around the service that we give to victims right across the board. This doesn't just sit in public protection and vulnerability, it's the whole force. So it links in with quality of investigations to make sure that those investigations have oversight, scrutiny, and you've got a victim at the end of those investigations. So this new governance structure that we've got, it is still evolving, still quite a lot of work to do, but I think we're moving in the right direction. We've got a new head of victim services now, so those all interlink to make sure that we are doing it as a joined up effort, should we say. I think the victim care unit as well is more embedded within that, the new structure with the victims and the investigations. And I think what was happening previously, that we were working in silos with all of those. What we need to do now is, and what we are doing now is bringing that all together. So we've got that holistic oversight. So there's still work to do on it. It's relatively new, but I think we've seen some positive steps forward already.
Good to hear. It's good to hear. Thank you for that. Now, in terms of victims and victim support, I know that at an All Wales level through the Criminal Justice Board, with our partners, we've all been working to develop some metrics to help us better understand levels of compliance with the Victims Code. But I'd be really keen to better understand what you see as potentially the challenges with taking this All Wales approach to this. And I'd add to that I was on a meeting with the Victims Minister the other day, where the Victims Minister actually said that she felt that there were some aspects of the code that needed to be reviewed as well. So it's good to know that there's that recognition of that. And really that, I suppose that prompted my question to you about where you see the main challenges of standardising that and ensuring compliance.
Yeah. I think the performance performance data is very difficult. It's difficult right across. We've got 43 different forces across the country, and 4 in Wales. And I think the difficulty we find here, I think, is consistency, that we're all sort of gathering the same data, and I think that's been raised in not just in this forum, but right across. For instance, the Child Centre Policing, we've been trying to get data from the 4 forces, and it's extremely difficult to get a consistent data collection. I know we've got people at the end of this, but I think our performance framework needs to be right within Gwent, and then obviously the regional meetings that we have, then making sure that we've got a consistent way of gathering the data and reporting on it, so that victims are getting an equitable service right across. And I'll just talk about Wales, for instance, that we making sure that we're addressing those victims' needs and working towards the charter right across the Welsh forces. It is quite difficult, and I think we've got it's identifying where those gaps are. Whether there's repeat victims, etc. And we're gathering all that information to make sure that we're processing it, we're looking at it, holistically right across the 4 forces. So I think there are difficulties because of the consistency and the way that performance is reported across different areas. Mm-hmm. So it is a journey.
Yeah, I think you've got naturally some differences between forces as well. The amount of investment they've had in IFAs and the likes, it does vary. I know that the Deputy Commissioner's keen on relaunching the RAWG All Wales position, and I would be supportive of that principle too. It is, and I think it's getting the right individuals into those roles and finding them. I think previously we've done it as a force, we've stepped into that area and we've contributed chief super posts at the time into that role. Right now, where we are with our establishment, we wouldn't be able to go forward as chief super or a super. And it's a conversation that chief constables are having, because we would like to bring that back into place. But whether that needs a bit more of a focus as to the right person as opposed to the right rank might well be a consideration moving forward. But I think that just gives you an example of those sort of challenges that we need to overcome, to come together and ensure there's a bit of parity between the Welsh forces, and that you don't get a superior victim service depending on your postcode, really. Difficult enough in our own force when we talk about going that wider step.
Yeah.
And I think with the victims specifically, I think we need to be the qualitative, look at the qualitative and not the quantity of this, because we can't be driven by metrics that are just showing our stats are good for quantity. Victims, it's got to be a qualitative outcome of that. So I think that's something that's been driven through the performance framework now that the Detective Super is got in with the victims and investigations board.
But I think there's clear signs of improvement as well. When you look at our Operation City Area feedback of late, you know, for people who've been subjected to sexual offences, it's encouraging to see that moving in very much the right direction.
I would agree with the importance of the qualitative feedback. I think that provides a really helpful illustration, doesn't it? In terms of the new performance framework then, recognising the importance of qualitative data, what is that going to look like?
I have to get back to you on the detail of it because the Detective Super is moving that along. But I know they're working with the analysts to make sure that we're collecting the right data as well. It's not just it's not number crunching, specifically around victims and looking at that, you know, victim satisfaction. But it's got to be more than number crunching and you know getting those stats. But I can certainly get some further detail on how that performance framework looks. I know it's now picked up in all the, not just in that strategic board, but out on the in the force, in the pillars as well. All the SMT look at packs as well, and this is included in that. But I can certainly get some more detail for you on that one, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity as the new performance framework is developed to think about how the views of victims can be incorporated into that performance framework. You know, recognition of the importance of qualitative information has already been referenced, and I think, you know, Gwent Police is fortunate to have a survivor engagement post, and there's a real opportunity to make sure and to consider how the views of victims could be incorporated both through the performance framework but also through the governance and scrutiny of that performance framework.
Can I just pick up finally on the report itself doesn't reference the interaction with the new victim support contract. How is that relationship working now that the contract's been embedded?
Yeah, without knowing the detail of that one, I have to get back to you with that one. I want to do this service. I can pick that one up as an action.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Has anybody else got any further questions in relation to this? Yeah. We move on then to the next item, which is our Strategic Equality Plan Annual Report. So I welcome this report, another comprehensive report, which I felt was really helpful information in this. And it's really clear from this that there's a huge amount of work going on across the organisation into delivering the Strategic Equality Plan. And this year of all years, we recognise how important that is, taking that forward. So I felt there was some really good information in here, including the positive feedback in terms of developing cultural competence across the whole force. So I thought that was particularly positive. I wanted to ask a few questions, really, some general questions and then a few more specifics. But what are your key concerns and risks in relation to the delivery of the Strategic Equality Plan, either from external influences or internal factors?
Key concerns and risks, I think a rapidly evolving global and national situation having local impact, both within the workforce for staff confidence and with our communities. Probably, you know, that is a red risk in relation to that, and the knock-on that has on community confidence and the whole principles of policing, of reporting, and to be able to deal with things effectively for many types of offences. So, and that all threads back into our trust and confidence principles and our mission statement. I think that the report itself is good, but it's not enough for us. We're wanting more. We're wanting to progress further. That does involve, and a conversation to have a bit more in detail, probably involves a bit more investment from us as a force on appropriate resourcing, our equality, diversity and inclusion needs, because it's a small department at the moment. Now, I want to very much, we've discussed having about expanding that across the whole of the organisation and not just having a small team who represent the principles of EDI and ensuring that we have those considerations in the things we do. We need that to be the bread and butter of every member of our staff, to be threaded through their thought processes in everything they do. And that is going to involve us going on a bit of an educational journey. There are things that I would like to, which I very much aspire to undertake in the future. Examples of such for us to have a force to have a true understanding on the institutional racism, because I think it's such a. I invited the National Black Historians Association conferences, and the Deputy Commissioner did too. It's a highly topical subject, has been for a long time, and I think it's probably unhealthy for police forces to not have an understood stance on it, whereby senior leaders can make a statement, which they aren't just making a statement, they're making a statement that is well evidenced and they do it when their workforce is well informed to understand it and their communities are well informed to understand it. But more importantly, again, what's going to be done to actually address it? Now, I think that is obviously one example, but I think that needs to spread across many of the aspects of protected characteristics. As you said in your opening lines there, Commissioner, there's a need for this more than ever. Yeah. With such a lot of understandable concerns within our community, I think regardless of statements made by political parties, influencers, technological leads, we need to show where we are and where we will be, regardless of what policies and procedures and guidelines come in from whatever way. That's the way that we are. And so this is something that we are not taking our foot on at all, in fact, enhancing and developing and got strong intentions to take it further.
Thank you for that, Chief Constable. I welcome that. And you mentioned there in your response the educational journey that we'll be going on. And that leads me really to my next question, which is, have you faced any resistance internally with some of the changes you've brought in, for example, requiring an EDI objective in PDRs? Has there been any?
Yeah, I think not from an overt or a written or even a perspective, in an official way, no. It would be naive to sit here and think that we haven't got members of staff who think that what's the value in this, and that is part of that ongoing education that we've got to thread through all of our considerations, really. And I think we discussed as a chief officer team of all of our comms, whatever they're about, whether they be about engagement, operational effectiveness, culture, whatever they might be about, that aspect of EDI considerations need to be threaded through them all. So that it doesn't lose momentum. And I think probably the other thing which is really, really important to stress is that, since your last AAB meeting, we've had a difficult time for policing with the Panorama programme highlighting severe shortcomings within the Metropolitan Police Force. Obviously, we've taken our own action within Gwent and as a fellow Welsh chief officers. To address local concerns and the workforces as well. But I think what it does is it magnifies the need for that. This is something that you can never not have at the forefront of your thoughts, and probably explains why we don't ever in the near future see culture coming off our risk register as a force, because it is something that needs to be on our mindset at all times. and you'll know some of the exciting programmes of work that we've got ahead of us. And the first batch of University of South Wales Hydra Suite staff, 300, will be going through their Hydra training in the near and future. And all of these things will go towards contributing towards getting us in that better place for the long-term future.
And you mentioned the need to address institutional issues, and I just wanted to highlight really that the excellent report. I know the report mentions this, but actually the excellent work that I think when we've got a report, it doesn't always really give a full sense of some of these things. And I just wanted to flag up really the work that has been done in terms of community engagement and support during periods of tension, because we know that our residents have felt very vulnerable in recent months and have been very upset. And it is, firstly, it's really positive to know that our residents and representatives of community groups are willing to continue to talk to us and work with us. That's so important, isn't it? But I think what we're able to evidence and what you're able to evidence is the value of that, the value of that work and those relationships and those connections, which is all important when you think about the diverse communities that we serve here in Gwent, isn't it? So I just wanted to flag that. And just on diverse communities, I thought it was really positive to see the feedback regarding representation of LGBT plus people across Gwent Police's workforce. And I wondered if you thought any more or done any more work on this in terms of trying to better understand whether does the data reflect positive outcomes for recruitment initiatives, or is it linked to improved confidence for officers and staff to share that personal information with the organisation, or both? Or have you done any work to try and get into that a little bit more?
I think that would be an interesting piece of work to undertake. My instinct would say both, but I wouldn't say that with 100% confidence that data would back it up. I think the programmes of work that we do both at an early stage of recruitment, plus with the existing amount of inputs that we give our existing staff, I'd like to think that many people are feeling more confident that we are a very inclusive organisation, and one that they're free to very comfortably be themselves when they come into work, because that's what we want and that's how we get the best out of people too. But I think the bit of work that is a piece of work we'll look at.
I think what helps as well, Commissioner, is the fact that as soon as something, whether it's national, even we had the LGBT issue that we address it straight away and get those messages out to the staff to show that we are supported as well. And what's helped now is that all of the staff networks have got a chief officer lead, someone that they can go to for whether it's mentoring, guidance, just to have that, so you've got that, structure that you've got somebody that you can go to. But I think those messages that go up really quickly is really positive.
Yeah. And that appears to be coming through the report, and that's very, very welcome indeed. I did also want to pick up on hate crime. So we can see good progress in the report in terms of the internal scrutiny of hate crime, and hate crime seems to be a topic that's in focus in policing at the moment, and I'm really appreciative of the approach that Gwent Police takes to this, and I want to put that on record in this formal meeting, that I'm really proud of the work that happens in Gwent in relation to that. And I know there's not that attitude towards it in all forces, which is regrettable, but I'm proud of what happens here in Gwent in relation to that. I do have a question though in relation to it, and I just wanted to better understand what mechanisms will be put in place to support sustainability and effectiveness of the hate crime support officer role in the future, because there is a strong commitment here in Gwent, and I just wanted to check with you on the sustainability of the role.
It very much features as part of our plan moving forward. We are on the cusp of a change of tactical lead within force for hate crime, so that it's firmly implanted in the role of the chief inspector in, I forget the actual terminology, the name, the one that's opposite Seabury, because I think so, the community safety partners like chief inspector. That is the role that will oversee hate crime, because it has moved a little bit with individual officers, and it needs to be embedded in that particular role. Specifically to your question, they will be staying because there's an absolute need to support people who've been subjected to hate crime. I share your concerns about certain groups of people underreporting because they haven't got confidence. I think we're not outside of where that looks nationally. Disabled people is a prime example of underreporting. If you look at the statistics on their own, it looks like disabled hate crime has gone down 8%. We know that's not the case, but there is a perception that there's a lack of action, and so people get reticent to report things, and we can't have that. But I think the hate crime support officers play a key role in that wider aspect of community confidence, and ensuring that we do give that best service that we can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is anybody, I'm conscious that it's quite a comprehensive report, but we have got others to look at. So has anybody got anything else on that?
I was just going to mention on the hate crime. It came up in a conversation yesterday in the victim support contract management meeting. And it's been on the risk register for a while that the number of hate crime referrals into the Wales Hate Crime Service, the victim support deliver, not under our contract with the Welsh Government money that they receive, are very low. And it's been on the risk register for a while, to be looked at. And I think Sammy has been tasked, she said she was going to pick that up. So I just think that that's probably something to monitor as well, because they're very low in comparison to the other Welsh forces as well, because they obviously see how many referrals come in from the different forces for hate crime. So I think it's probably something to have a look at. And I think it's been picked up, but
yeah,
it would be good to see them from a contract side, from the victim support side, being picked, increasing. Definitely show, I suppose, that people were getting the support and being identified as, needing support and being put to the right place.
Absolutely. And you raise it, it's a really critical point, especially when there's such imminent potential change for non-crime agents.
And it's a service they obviously support, so we want it to be picked up, don't we? And for them to get the support that they need. So.
Okay. Great. Thanks very much for that. We'll move on then to our Information Services Annual Compliance Report. I'd like to flag up straight away the great progress in terms of timeliness and compliance around FOIs, subject access requests. There's a significant improvement in this. So I really want to highlight that and the good work that's been done there in relation to that. And certainly for me, in terms of the time that I've spent in this role, it's great, because when I first came into the role, it was an issue. So great, please feedback to the teams involved, great progress in relation to that. There were a couple of points I wanted to pick up, though, just in terms of this item. The one is in relation to the publication of information that's required by the Information Commissioner's Office. Now, whilst there is plenty of information available, I'm for me, and I've been able to identify that in terms of making this information available to the public via your website, there is still some gaps in terms of publication. I think we've touched on it in our discussions in our Accountability and Assurance Board previously. So can this be followed up, please, to ensure that the appropriate information is available. I know it exists. I know it exists. And I'm assured that it exists. So I've got every confidence. But it's not always easily accessible for people.
We'll take that
Okay.
on and ensure that is improved.
Thank you. And just one other query really in relation to this, and I don't expect you to be able to answer this. I do want to raise it because it's been highlighted to me. But recently the media has been covering some issues that have emerged with another police force that have actually paid out £46,000 in data breach related compensation over the past 6 years. So this clearly could potentially be an issue for police forces across the UK, England and Wales. So are you aware of any compensation paid out by Gwent in relation to any compensation around data breaches?
Melissa, we can follow
And I'm
that
happy
up.
for you to come back to me on that. I think it's in the public interest to know if there was any.
Off the top of our heads, but we will look into it.
Because it will come through
Yeah.
me, myself or the chief, so
Yeah.
I'll take that away.
It hasn't happened within the last, I'd be confidently saying it hasn't happened in the last 2 years because I've been liaising previously to Nikki's.
Definitely not come through.
We haven't dealt with that.
Okay. Thank you. That'd be really helpful if you can do that. And I just want to loop that back to my opening comment, which was there's been great improvement. So, but it would be good to have that closure on that particular. Anybody else got any questions on that? No? Okay, shall we move on to the Gwent Police Welsh Language Standards annual report? I thought it was really positive in terms of the reflection of the language capabilities for the force. So really positive. Good to see the work ongoing around Welsh language availability across our systems, and really pleasing to see that no complaints have been received by the force in relation to Welsh language during the year, which is, as a public body, that's excellent. That's really positive. So just considering the report, do you think the balance is right in terms of the resources committed to the promotion of the Welsh language across Gwent Police and the results reflected in the report?
I think it has improved. We're in a much better place now. But I think there's always room for improvement with this because definitely we are more alive to when we're doing the recruitment now to take on Welsh speakers. And I think a lot of the good work within this report is down to the fantastic work that Sarah Hughes has done. I mean, 2-3 years ago, we weren't in such a good place with the Welsh language standards. It's a very, very difficult and area to navigate, but from where we were to where we are now, and I think the promotion of that within our recruitment, I don't think we have that drive as much as we do now, but there's still room for improvement with this.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think a couple of years ago, it was on the force risk register with a number of actions that needed undertaken, and they are not. It's not on the register now because Sarah would put us in such a good place. But I think the point that you're on about in relation to improvements, we're very much alive to. So currently, you'll be aware that Amanda Blakeman, as the Welsh Chief Officer Group Lead, has been engaging with the College of Policing to look at assessment centres and being able to undertake that in Welsh. So without going into the huge semantics of it, that is achievable, but what is being apparent is that comes at a substantial cost. So we are, as a group of chiefs, looking at other alternatives and potentially being able to undertake that ourselves. And whether that will be achievable to the desired standard and be better cost-wise is yet to be seen, but we're undertaking that as a piece of work because regardless, one way or the other, it needs to happen. And we need to be very much understanding that Welsh is not an additional language nice to have. It's a core principle and the primary language of Wales, which I think is sometimes not understood outside of Wales. But it's very much understood by us as a force. And I think I think the future on that looks bright, and that will hopefully assist us in drawing more potential recruits who are fluent Welsh speakers as well. But it is an ongoing challenge. We have got a limited number of fluent Welsh speakers who would be happy to speak to press, for example, over force issues. And it's something that we've got to encourage and keep going with, and making sure people are doing their levels of Welsh language to improve that situation.
And sustaining it as well is we've got to a good level of compliance, but I think we've got to look beyond that. We've got to go over and above that. Where we are now is in a good place, but it's maintaining the sustainability and going above that just being compliant. That's going to be critical.
It's really positive, and thank you for that. Has anybody else got any further comments on that? No? Okay. Moving on then to the next report, which is the compliance with the Code of Ethics. I think we need to do some further work around the information that we've got in relation to this. I just wanted to ask that on many of the agendas we will see a stand-in item really on our agendas, which asks if there are any ethical matters that need to be referred to the Ethics Committee. Have there been any referrals over the past year?
We'll have to give a detail for that. But our ethics board has been still running, but we can get you the details of what those agenda items have been discussed. Okay,
maybe we'll put that then on an AAB agenda going forward, so that we can take a more detailed look at that. Shall we move on from that then? And if we're going to take that elsewhere, move on to coercive powers. I thought there was some really interesting factual information in this report, so quite a lot of really helpful information and detail. There are a number of, and it won't surprise you to know that there are a number of questions that I've got arising from this. So, and particular areas that I'd like to focus on. So, in terms of stop searches involving children under 18, I was quite concerned to notice the prevalence of that in the report. And I was keen to better understand from you what you believe to be the primary reason or driver for this change during the past year.
And I think what has driven this is the organised crime that is prevalent concentrated around not just Newport, but predominantly around Newport, and the inclusion of children more within those, which is quite worrying, within organised crime groups, and the use of children within there. And I think that intelligence that comes in reflects we've got the age drop now, that is the recruiting, should we say, for the best word, younger children, which is very, very worrying. We get those are scrutinised and enforced, but not only enforced, we get them in the child-centred policing meeting, the numbers of strict searches and searches of children and searches, and compared to the other four forces, which gives us a sort of a a gauge really to where we are as Gwent. But it is worrying. It is absolutely worrying, and those are brought up within the safeguarding board as well. Not so much as that, but looking at that impact on the young children as well, and how that guides them through their, to youth, etc. But it is worrying. That age profile and the fact that more children are being stopped is something that we are really focused on. So there's a lot of scrutiny around it within Force, and whether those are just make sure those powers are there and they are proportionate. And if there is anything that comes out of those meetings, then they are fed back quite rapidly to make sure that we're not, doing anything that's not reasonable and it's not necessary. But it is worrying. I totally agree with you on that one, Commissioner. It is a worrying factor. Probably doesn't answer your question, but we've got a lot of scrutiny around it within Force.
And just staying really with young people, I just wanted to ask you some further questions really around, and I understand that the scrutiny is in place in relation to this, but the report highlights that there were 5 exposure of intimate parts searches recorded for children under the age of 18, and we all know that nationally there's a concern about that, and there have been some cases where children haven't been treated in an appropriate manner in relation to that. And I just thought what would be really helpful is to better understand the reasons for that, the exposure of intimate parts searches for children, because
I haven't got the detail on the 5, but they would be highly likely to be in a custody environment where there's either a risk to that child's life, or there's some suggestion that they've got drugs or something hidden on them. So there would be a lot of scrutiny around that. There'd be a supervisor involved. We're quite strict around that. They've got to be. It's got to be reasonable and necessary. And an AA appropriate adult, would be present if any of those would be done. But the scrutiny around that is very, very strict. I know those numbers. 5 sounds quite a lot, but I think those, if those, they call EIPs now, exposing intimate parts of bodies or strip searches, were required, they would be absolutely necessary, and there'd be a lot of scrutiny around them. So I can get you the detail of whether those, but I'm quite sure that those would have been in the custody environment.
Okay, thank you for that. And of course, I should re-emphasise for anybody picking up this meeting, the recording of this meeting, that we are currently, the report we're exploring is the use of coercive powers. So the very nature of that means that we'll be discussing these issues as part of this. I was interested to note, and actually particularly interested to note, having witnessed the training for this, that taser use was recorded on 438 forms. And taser discharge was recorded on 33 forms. Now for me, that's interesting because I've got a better understanding of that now, having been to the training. But what I was concerned about, once again, and it's in relation to the use of force on children under 18, is the use of taser as well. So I understand that if looking at the report and the information that we've got available to us, that at least 19 children had taser use against them in Gwent, including taser discharge, which is a concern, isn't it? And I recognise that often that this is necessary in order to stop any harm coming to people in this situation. I do recognise that, and I know that there's some really positive ongoing work in relation to the development of an educational resource to help children understand what this is and help to improve engagement with the police, so that hopefully this will reduce the use of this in future. But once again, I think I was concerned to see the level of that in relation to children, and I was keen to understand your perspective on that.
Yeah, okay. I think I understand the concerns, and it is not, on the face of the cold stats, it's not, taser does sound an extreme thing to have for a child. I suppose a couple of things with the operational context on it, really, Commissioner, is having been in some positions before whereby there have been intoxicated individuals or people who are suffering from mental health crisis who might be about to cause harm to themselves as well as others. Some children, albeit by age, are children, can be extremely sizable and strong and powerful, and also potentially might be having incidents of acute behavioural disorder and things as such. I'm very confident, having only undertaken in the last month officer safety training, that we really do cover with all of our staff, and remembering that we've got a 98% compliance of all of our officers on officer safety training. I'm really confident that they cover this off really comprehensively, and they really do make considered efforts to talk about impact factors and options. And I would say that the taser figure on its own, and I know you've taken your time to go out to go and look at the taser training. You understand very much that taser number per se is not the breakdown of the actual taser use, because you've got the dots, soon to be green dots with the introduction of T10, and the drawing, which is all recorded effectively. The actual usage by comparison is very, very small. But any use is obviously something that has impact, and quite rightly, as Nikki's stated a lot of times, it has to have that scrutiny and that oversight, not just from local supervision, but actually right through to a scrutiny panel that looks at these use of force on people who are minors. The one other thing I would add is that albeit the taser still has the perception and the reputation, I suppose, of being an extreme use of force, on an actual deployment perspective, it falls below using baton strikes and other forms of restraint, because it is something which is a temporary impact and doesn't leave long-term effects in the vast majority of cases. So it is on that, if you like, hierarchical chain of use. It can be a useful deterrent to stop everybody at that scene getting hurt, really. It is something that's reviewed nationally with the use of force and self-defence and restraint groups scrutinising this and disproportionality within force areas as well. And we don't sit as a force as an outlier in a negative context. In fact, we sit both healthily within Wales and within the UK.
No, I don't think so. I think I'm just thinking of the use IHE that we will be having now shortly. I think that's probably something that could be very topical as a subject to be brought up there. I made a note of, I know we've got scrutiny and oversight, but just for the data that we've got within there, because it is quite strict and stringent oversight, particularly when there's children involved. So I can get that further detail to you.
Okay, thank you.
The actual group scrutinise every use of force like that on a young person. In a similar way, we do it for people of ethnic heritage with our racial disproportionality rate too. So every single one of them has scrutiny of a OST, operational support training officer, who is an expert in the use of all those tactics to make sure that it's being used accordingly. And on the very rare occasion, and it is a rare occasion, that it would, if it was felt by that person that needed warrant more investigation, it would be referred through to professional standards and potentially to the appropriate authority for consideration for referral into PLBC.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further questions on that item? Oh. Okay, thank you both very much for your comprehensive and very assuring responses in relation to that. We'll move on to our volunteers report then, and I thought that there's some really helpful aspects to this report. I had the real privilege and pleasure of actually going to an awards evening for the Special Constabulary, and I was just completely overwhelmed by the level of commitment that our volunteers show, but the number of hours that those officers had put in. And it was really interesting. I was attending an event in an area of Gwent at the start of September, and it was good to see that was being policed by a range of officers, including the special constables as well. So really positive. And I felt that in terms of the volunteer report itself, there is a greater opportunity there to reflect the wider range of volunteer support across the whole of Gwent from a range of different organisations, different groups, different backgrounds. I suppose what I'm trying to say is there's actually some really great stuff going on. It's not quite captured in the background there. So just some feedback in relation to that. I wanted to just check in with you in terms of, we know that a review has been undertaken in relation to citizens in policing and the portfolio. What progress is being made in terms of implementing the findings of that review?
There's quite a bit of work ongoing around the volunteers specifically. I went out to an event up in Tredegar. There were some volunteers up there who came forward and said perhaps we're not being used enough. You know, they felt as if their voice wasn't being heard, and they were available to do more. So I've fed that back to our new coordinator, and that hopefully now is starting to be progressed. But I think it's that not disengagement, but I think that sometimes that we're not utilising them as much as we could, as much as we should as well. And that has been you know, a little bit of a failure on our part, but I think that's progressed massively now, where we get them more engaged. With specials in particular, there's a recruitment issue right across the country, which is quite difficult. We just can't seem to get the numbers of special constabulary, but we've changed the way that we do summer schools now. It's very difficult if somebody wants, if they're working full time, for them to be, you know, taking time out of their working day. So what we do now with the specials is put on a summer school, so a condensed one, so they can do it in a shorter time. So we are listening, and with the new coordinator now, I think there's a little bit more traction with pulling all those issues. Perhaps we haven't been utilising our volunteers as well as we could, and you know, rightly as you said, we need to capture that in future reports of the work that we're doing to progress that, to try and get this, you know, the volunteers, because they do some fantastic work for us. And yes, we do recognise them, but I think we do need to make sure that we've got that forward thinking as well. There's work to do. There is work to do.
It's good to hear about the progress, though, and I think certainly if I reflect on our volunteers, our independent custody visitors, or our animal welfare volunteers, their knowledge is just incredible, and the fact that people volunteer this time up to us to help support us in the work that we do is just, well, it's quite humbling, really, isn't it, that people are prepared to do that. I did want to ask in relation to special constables, because we know that the Home Office has got an intention of increasing the numbers of officers available across policing in England and Wales, and we've already seen the first part of that with the neighbourhood policing guarantee. Moving forwards, it is it has been stated that special constabulary is also part of this in terms of increasing numbers. Is there any support from the Home Office in terms of increasing those numbers?
I suppose the explicit answer to that, Commissioner, is no, because the neighbourhood policing guarantee, as you are aware, is more of a rounded figure with a proportion of what they would like to be officers, PCSOs, and volunteers. The aspiration, as you know, is there there's a definite intention and aspiration from that to have more volunteers, but that is difficult because what we are having is we're having a churn of people who are looking to come into the office, into the organisation as a full-time officer, using the opportunity of maybe being a special constable first. It gives them, I suppose, a bit of an opportunity to see if it is for them. It also gives us an opportunity to look at them. But it is a bit of a cycle in the fact that it's great that we're having recruitment for part of the uplift to sustain our numbers, but we're pitching from the same pool of people who are interested in coming in the job. So finding people who are able to do that on a voluntary basis on top of often their busy lives and secondary or their primary employment is challenging. We've got a team that work actively on that. It falls very much in part of our positive action team's aspirations as well, because we want the special constabulary to be made up of a representative workforce too. But I think there's more we can do. And I think there's a few conversations we've had lately about potentially going out and looking a bit further downstream, should we say, on where maybe some of our cadet programs are run.
Yeah.
And maybe having some of them in more diverse areas too, and areas that we might not have traditionally gone into, so that we're going out to people rather than asking them to come to us. And that gives us a bit of a potential breeding ground for future people who might want to, as adults, come in as a special or as a regular. So that's a long answer to that question. The intention is there, but it's down to individual forces to try and tailor that.
What we're doing as well, which is good, we've got that federation support for our specials now, which we didn't have before, which is massive.
Yeah.
So that, that's progress as well. And I started my career as a specialist.
And I think, the example of World Masterpiece in saying because we are at the forefront of whatever opportunities we can to encourage people to come to be a special. We give them opportunities to be blue light trained with driving, to be taser trained. We've taken on all of those things as a force that have been given to us. And we also allow specials to specialise into areas of interest for them as well, rather than say that they have to undertake a certain role. And we extend that out to potential specialised and staffing roles as well. So, I think we're alive to all forms of ways of doing it, but there's more we can do. And I think we, hopefully make some progress on that.
Yeah. And it's really great, I think, just to return to the fact that this is a public meeting. I think it's really positive to see to hear about the experience of such a valuable female role model such as yourself, who actually started out as a special constable. So great there, I think, for our citizens to be able to understand that as well. Really pleased in terms of the membership to the Fed. There was a factual inaccuracy in relation to that we asked for to be clarified, just in terms of where the funding for that lies. But I did want to pick up on finance with you. So, and this is just around the issue of volunteers claiming expenses. And I know that, there are many people in this room that are volunteers as well. I think it's the nature of public service that people are minded to be volunteers. And so when I read this, I know that it will be true that there will be volunteers who are reluctant to claim expenses. But I just wondered what is being done to review the process there in order to encourage and support all those volunteers to to claim their expenses and ensure that they're reimbursed in a timely manner, because we have seen a decrease in that. I do understand that people who are committed to public service may not necessarily want to do that, but I'm keen to understand what's being done to review that process.
I get back to all that.
Yeah, sure, cool, yeah. Anybody else got any questions on that?
Just a final point of clarification for the report, but on page 5, it talks about 4 volunteers, and obviously it's been talking about numbers of volunteers elsewhere. I think it probably needs the insertion of crime prevention volunteers. So it's 4 crime prevention volunteers, not just 4 volunteers for crime police. And I think those are the volunteers, Deputy Constable, who feel, and we've had similar feedback. So I think, providing that reassurance that the force is being proactive in terms of the opportunities for them. But I think if we can amend the report so that we're clear on the 4, it's not just 4 volunteers, it's 4 crime prevention volunteers.
Okay. Anything further on that point? No? Okay. Right. Let's move on then to our People Services Strategy annual report. What I did want to note from this, and certainly from our regular engagement with this area of service through your internal network, Chief Constable, is the really positive focus that we start to see on wellbeing as well. And I wonder if you'd just like to expand on the commitment to wellbeing here in Gwent.
Usually. So obviously the wellbeing aspect is core for us as a force, for our staff. I think huge believer in the internal workforce when they feel valued, looked after, that their health and safety, that their welfare and their well-being is met. That has a positive effect on the way that they deal with the public themselves and the way that they interact and the way that they generally carry themselves. So it's a core principle. It also is a huge contributor towards our employer opinion survey, also to our attendance and our general morale as well. So really, really important for us. I think as an organisation, as a force, we're an outlier positively on what we invest in well-being. We've got a comprehensive group of well-skilled, trained and very enthusiastic, committed members of staff working within occupational health. Well-being leads, we are, for I want to say the 3rd consecutive year, being put forward for Oscar Kilo national recognition as a leading force. We provide enhanced training to supervisors on first line supervisors courses on recognising symptoms for officers and staff for underlying issues, enhanced training on mental health recognition, really focusing on making sure that people have got the right levels of workloads as well, so that they don't suffer from fatigue. And it's something that's threaded throughout the organisation. Getting quick support in place when officers be working a very, very challenging job, obviously, and there often are incidents which are quite extreme. So we're very, very quick in getting interaction of trained individuals on trauma, risk, incident management, and following up good welfare wraps around staff. So we also include that wellbeing welfare provision around members of staff who are subject to complaints and investigations themselves, because we're aware that can be a particularly challenging time for staff too. I think what the other thing I would say is that we've got a strong understanding as a chief officer group, and we filtered that down throughout our senior management teams as well, about the importance of people having the opportunity to have that right work-life balance as well. and also to have that ability to do things which are complementary to being operationally effective too. So factoring in a proportionate amount of time to support people who are representing Gwent Police or national policing in sporting events or in other arenas and showcasing off policing is something that we do our very best to support when it operationally allows to. And we've been pretty proud on having people who are representing both Wales and Great Britain from Gwent Policing, lots of different things as well. So it is very much a core principle for us.
And I have to say that I've been very encouraged personally by in terms of my interactions with representatives of the staff networks in relation to the contribution the staff networks make to wellbeing as well. You know, it's really positive to have that experience. There is just on this particular report, and I welcome the focus on wellbeing, which I'm sure will continue to have a positive impact going forward. But I will be continuing, I think, to scrutinise long-term sickness rates, because I think that does come out quite strong in the report. So we continue to look at that. Has anybody else got any questions on this report? No? Okay, thanks. So the next report is the Learning and Development Strategy Annual Report. I'm going to move this into the next AAB because I would like further detail in this report. So we'll move on to the Communication Strategy Annual Report, and I know Chief Constable Communications is something that you're really determined really to make best use of in terms of the work that you do. So in considering the report, which I felt was quite comprehensive, another report that's quite good, I can see that it tells us that 17% of adults get their news from YouTube. So I just wonder, how are you using this in terms of communications? And we've been doing some work over the summer around communications, and I've been really surprised in terms of the information that we've gathered from children and young people in terms of how they access information with different aspects of social media and how that varies by different age group as well. So I was particularly interested in this report, which tells us that 17% of adults get their news from YouTube. And I just, how are you using this? What are your plans to utilise this going forward, as I suspect this may increase?
Yeah, I think 100% this is an evolving area all the time, and we've got to be alive to there being no single way of communicating. When you look at both the disparities across the force in methodologies that people prefer to be updated, some of them are in person, some of them written press, some of them on radios and televisions, and some via digital methodology. That digital methodology has expanded more and more. Traditionally from being Facebook and Instagram, but I will say that we've evolved Facebook again and really regenerated that. A lot of our Facebook posts and our stuff are really switched on to that. But utilising the more modern methodologies, utilising TikTok, an ACC called TikTok Nick, has been something new for us. YouTube, so specifically to your question, something that we're adopting more and more. We found that some of the articles that we put on YouTube have been incredibly successful with the amount of people that have watched them, reviewed them, and made comments positively on them. Some of them in recent times have included when we had a severe assault on a member of staff, PC Atwell, and there was a lot of people who viewed that online, and I think that really opened people's eyes up to some of the risks involved in working in emergency service work and some of the things that can happen. And also a very, very well viewed thing on YouTube was when we put a pursuit on of off-road bikes with some drone footage that became the biggest viewed piece of media work that we've ever put out in Gwent before. So there's things we're doing. There's more we need to do to expand on that. Dickie touched earlier on about the Neighbourhood Matters programme as well. That's obviously embedded in early days at the moment, but really exciting how that's progressing. And I think that two-way flow of feedback and communicating is evolving. There's no one way of doing it, and I know your office too is utilising as many opportunities as possible to be able to expand that reach. But I think the YouTube angle is something which is something that we're alive to and using more and more.
Yeah, I think we're open to using majority of platforms. YouTube is one of the things that we're looking at going forward. Because you're right, that is the thing at the moment. But the rollout of the Facebook local pages has been really, really successful. So incrementally, we are increasing our our social media interest, should we say, from the public. We've been really, really successful. And what I will say is, over this past year, I think we've made huge improvements in the way we communicate with public, or communities across social media platforms. But YouTube is one that we're definitely looking at, enhancing that, making sure that we are, on par with public. If that's where the most views are and the most uses, then users are, then that's where we need to, get our stories out in.
I think it's just a key point for us, really, isn't it? That we thread all the time about better engagement. This, we are, but we've still got to carry on, getting better and better at selling successes and telling people what we're doing. When we think about some of the criticism that we talked about earlier on about victim updates, we've often done a lot of things, but not got back to the victim about what we've done. This is a similar thing. We've done a lot of things, but some of those results might happen in the early hours of the morning and are only physically seen by a handful of people. We need to get more consistent in ensuring that we sell the successes, because that does grow people's confidence in reporting things as well, because they can see proactive activity being undertaken. And that's part of the journey that we're on. So we're utilising all of those forums.
Yeah. And I think there is that wider issue there, isn't there, in terms of raising public awareness. We've had some very positive feedback, incredibly positive feedback actually from our citizens in relation to shows like Rookie Cops and Crash Detectives, people being able to really get a sense of the work that actually goes on in policing here in Gwent. There's been some really positive feedback in relation to that. I was at an event myself, actually, when a lady approached me to give me feedback on engagement using Facebook and the updates that community. She was actually somebody who ran a community Facebook page, and she was really pleased with the work that the police were doing, and she sought me out to give me that feedback. So there's definitely an impact across our communities in relation to that work. And again, I think that's enhanced by those documentary type series that we see as well around that. I note that across the public sector, and some of our close public sector partners actually have started to use WhatsApp as well. And I just wondered what the plans are for that. Have you been monitoring that wider sort of public sector use to get a sense for how that's going down with our citizens here in Gwent?
I think McLean has just picked up the lead for social media, which is beast in itself. But I think the use of WhatsApp has its benefits. It also has its disbenefits, shall we say, when, if we're trying to encourage the sensible use of WhatsApp across our offices and our groups there, because we've got the issues that we've had historically with PSD matters, etc. But I think that's certainly something that we are exploring. And now that Nick has picked up that portfolio, that WhatsApp is one of the areas that he's going to be looking at and exploring ways around that, how we can use it safely and to make sure that our staff and officers and also the public benefit from it. So that is literally just taking that portfolio on. So it's probably watch this space on that one.
I think the other thing to expand on that, touched on it, Commissioner, was about the increasing use of other public services and partners. So what we've definitely seen with comms is an increasing era of risk of misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. The healthy use of comms joined up together with our public service partners has tackled issues of community cohesion and risks of community myths very quickly, and it's something that we've got to be alive to. We've had it in recent times over misinformation on a number of fronts, which related to travellers camp in Newport, relating to a scout camp in Newbridge, the use of a hotel in Evervale, things that could very, very quickly escalate on social media into causing things which are quite full of disharmony by being front-footed in relation to the use of media. It stemmed that, but it's not just front-footed as an individual force, it's front-footed as a group of public service partners. Newport Council are exceptionally good on addressing some of those issues with us earlier in the year. So that comms aspect is becoming more, at the same time as that's becoming more proactive as well as retaining reactive. Our approach to positive comms, our approach also has to be increasingly dynamic and rapid in the way that it's deployed. And our staff need to understand that they've got our full support in using media and comms proactively and positively, because I think for differing reasons we've gone, in years gone by, we went through a period where we were a little bit reticent to undertake that, and we can't stay in that era for trust and confidence reasons, really.
Absolutely, and I think we've talked about the feedback that we're getting from our citizens on this and the public, and certainly when I'm out and about, I've definitely received positive feedback in relation to this. But I did wonder in terms of the use of social media platforms and the campaigns, what analysis or what tracking you're doing in relation to where the people are located, because that's certainly an issue when it comes to misinformation, isn't it? We find out that sometimes people are not in the policing area, actually not in this country, not in the UK. Is there any analysis being undertaken in relation to that?
What we're able to do now, particularly with the local Facebook groups that are on there, we can monitor those areas specifically. What would help now is this neighbourhood matters app that we've got, and that drills right down into because the community messaging that's pushed out, it's a two-way communication. So that will give us that analysis from next week. We're going to start gathering that analysis of where those areas how we want to communicate as well. We're going to hopefully we can use the people that have already signed up from the last campaign that we did and enhance on that. So really give us those areas that we can focus on, perhaps where there's not so much engagement on that. And I think the local Facebook pages have given us that sort of a better understanding of where those areas where the people do engage on social media. There are gaps, because I think we picked it up in the perception survey of perhaps there's some areas that don't use social media so much as others. And I think that's something that we need to have a look at, of how we target those parts of the community that, you know, are not used to using or don't want to use it, and how we get those messages, those important messages out. So that's sort of an aside from the social media that we need to, not everybody uses it. Mm-hmm. That's something that we need to look at going forward.
And actually thinking about that, I mean, there are other forms of communication mentioned in this report, and just in relation to internal communication, obviously there's the intranet, or the beat, as we describe that. What is the situation of that going forward? Will that continue in its current format?
Yes, it is, but it is something we need to improve on. Internal messaging is something that we definitely need to look at in some finer details, more granular detail. I think what we have been doing is getting those bigger messages out when we do the staff surveys and HMIC visit, for instance, and they do the sort of field work with the staff. I think there's sometimes a little bit of disconnect about those messages, and it's the smaller things that our staff need to know. So that's something that we need to are going to focus on, rather than those big corporate messages that we pass out from chief officers and hope that they filter down. It's the smaller issues and the more local issues that our officers want to know. Mm-hmm. So that's something we are definitely focusing on.
And I think just for me, certainly, I did notice that the report also mentions the use of video screens. So what is the plan going forwards? Because I understand that the screens that we've got here are not in use at the moment. What are the plans in relation to these?
It has been a bit of a journey on those. We've now got to a good stage where we've just literally had the software and just a couple of months of being able to utilize all those screens. But we've got them in outstations, etc. It has been a bit of a trouble, should we say, to get those up and running, but we are almost there. We're almost there.
And the screens here in this building?
Those will be included as well.
Okay, thank you. That's very reassuring. I've noticed they seem to have been offline for a while. Thank you for that. Any further questions on this report, Rod?
Obviously, there's a lot of focus on the external comms, but obviously with the corporate communications team, there are internal comms as well. I just wondered if Chief Councillor Mullin would mind talking about how that approach has evolved over the years and the role that internal comms has in tackling the culture piece, which you touched on a few times today.
Yeah, huge part, Rod, really. I think, you know, that they play a significant part in ensuring that, I think, as I alluded to earlier on, that central thread message needs to be running through all of our communications. To be fair to the constantly making sure that we do that, because we might be talking about things which are specifically operational, and they give us that gentle nudge to ensure that is in there. So to be fair to the team, I think they work really well on making sure that the consistency of mission, vision, plan and value statements are dropped in at the appropriate times when we're doing those front-faced messages. I think it's a fine balance, isn't it, with that, because when you're landing improvement and conduct and culture messages, you don't want it to all sound negative. You don't want it to all be PSD driven, but there has to be an element of that because it has to show consequence. So I think we got the balance quite healthily now. We've got Superintendent Payne doing his ESD updates and keeping on top of those, giving people messages of current cases. We highlight a zero tolerance approach when we have officers who are dismissed for different reasons and subject to misconduct periods. And that's all, that internal messaging is very much there. But it's about complementing that with education at the same time, because obviously when we get to that end result, to an extent, that's a failure. I get that it's not just the fact that we're addressing and root causing things, but it would have been a lot better if we'd stopped it in the first place, just like crime, you want to prevent it in the first place rather than detect it. So the big aspect of threading that through and getting that healthy balance is huge. The comms team internally play a big part in that.
Thank you. Anybody else got any questions on? No. Well, thank you both very much for your responses in relation to that. Should we move on to the annual procurement report? I don't want to linger on this. I think we've spent some good time looking at procurement, and I know that we've got regular updates from procurement as well. But what I do want to do, once again, is recognise and acknowledge the excellent work that's gone on through procurement, and I'm really pleased that that was recognised nationally with the award as well. So, and I do hope that will be fed back to everybody who's involved in that process. There is some. I think for me, the work in terms of our teams in relation to procurement is another really good example of all the it's the oil that keeps the engine going, really, and it's really good to have had that external recognition, and we know that there's some positive work going on. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Fantastic support to our staff, you know, the cases that go through service improvement board and support from the community. It is very complex area to navigate, so I'll feed that back.
Excellent, thank you. The next item then is the ICT Digital Strategy annual report, and I recognise as well that the Assistant Chief Constable couldn't be with us today in relation to that. So I just wanted to say that there's a huge amount of information provided in this. We probably need to look at the provision of the previous strategy that's coming to an end, which is a couple of chief constables ago. So just maybe just a couple of paragraphs on that going forwards, perhaps. But I know we've got a lot of ongoing work in relation to this, and I'm really pleased with a lot of the partnership working around this. I want to correct that there is a piece in there that says I attend the SRS board. I'm really pleased that Larry does a great job of representing me there. So just wanted to set that right. And actually, I don't want to dwell on this report too much because I know that because there's a lot of ongoing activity in relation to this, I am receiving regular updates with regard to it. If that's all right with you, is there anything you'd like to add into that, or no? Okay. So the next report that we've got on the agenda is the Fleet Management Strategy Annual Report. And my deputy and I, we were really pleased to go and visit the Fleet workshop and meet the teams there and look at all the really positive work that's gone on there. And I know there was a lot of work was undertaken to get to that point. And what I really wanted to say was this is a really positive, comprehensive, well-written report, certainly really well received from my perspective. And what that highlights, the report highlights, is really good progress in relation to the management of fleet. And I know this is before I came into this role, but I do understand there was some instability there in terms of the workforce, which is really good to see that really positive now. And I don't have any major issues that I'd like to raise in relation to this in this meeting, but just a couple of questions that we'll follow up afterwards, just for clarity more than anything else. So, but please feedback to the team that is a really excellent report. On the estate strategy annual report, I don't want to engage in too much scrutiny in relation to this today, because what I'd like to do is discuss this. I think our sequencing, perhaps, in relation to this report is slightly off, and we need to go back to ESB with this, and then do some further scrutiny. So if everybody's comfortable with that, we'll leave it at that for today. And the next item then is our off-road biking annual report, because that's been moved into, you said it was, yeah. So that's been moved into the public. Part of the strategy. Now, off-road biking is something that we know is incredibly important to our residents, and we know it's an issue that comes up in our engagement with our residents. I think all of us in this room will have had some contact with people telling us how it can be a real blight actually on communities, and the issues it can cause as well. And I know the Chief Constable and I have both been to town councils where we've been intensively scrutinised in relation to this issue. And the point that I'm trying to make around this is that we understand how important an issue this can be to our residents. So I'm pleased to see the report being reported in here, because I know that we've had occasions where we haven't had time to discuss this issue. I would like to see the report expanded on in future, because once again, this is another area of activity where I know that there is some really positive work going on, and I just don't feel it's captured in the entirety of this report. So I suppose I've got a general question in relation. In the absence of all of that lovely rich detail, and certainly I was somewhere very recently where Chief Superintendent White was explaining to people the impact of this. It's everywhere I go. If there are officers there, you know, it's possible to talk about this. So how are you monitoring whether the approaches that you're undertaking are having a positive effect? Now, I'm giving you feedback that I've received from the public, but how are you really getting into that and monitoring that?
What I will say on this one is this is 24-25 now. We've got the CAT team, community action team. So the next report will show a different picture completely. Yes, you're right, antisocial behaviour with off-road biking is something that is a real blight for the community. So this is something that we need to really drill down into. With the community action team, for instance, the statistics and the arrests and the seizures, etc., is monitored really quite closely, and the results that we've seen just from June until last month is phenomenal. So the impact on future annual reports will reflect that, and targeting specific areas and specific community concerns is one of our real focuses now. And I think we've got, running alongside that, we've got the operations as well as specific targeted operations, Operation Harley, for instance, which target that, but work in conjunction with the community action team now. So they dovetail together. So combined, I know the community action team will be working around this way around the force, dependent on the intelligence that we get. But I think those two now that we can really monitor and see the impact that this is making, and I think we're going in definitely in the right direction with positive outcomes that we've had from that. And I think the feedback from the public that we've had through the community action teams as well has been superb. And we're targeting what they're asking us to do and the things that are causing them all the issues. So,
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, so, I think I said earlier on about I think it's the communications aspect that we've never had is about offering what's the interest level is prevalent. You know yourself, Commissioner, as you said, the many meetings we've gone to, it is far-reaching across the whole of Gwent. Something that I think for different reasons and competing demands, we focused we maybe not putting as much energy as we are currently on, but we are. You know, it does form part of tangible things that our communities want to see us use our name and policing staff for, and that is what they do. And they are getting great results, and it's about communicating that and making sure that people are aware of that as well.
Yeah, and just on that communication.
Sorry, to interrupt. There is the other thing is I think this is really important point to make is that there's obviously the punitive aspects of things that we're undertaking and the seizures and the antisocial behaviour action. But I think it's really progressive that we're doing good work with partners in areas to allow for people who want to partake in off-road bike activity in areas which are agreeable with landowners' permissions. And the stuff that's being done in Caerphilly North up in Rugby right now is going down really well, I think, with the local communities, the young people and with residents, because we don't want to just disperse that activity to other areas. We want to give it an opportunity to be undertaken where it's not disturbing people and not allowing them to go about their business, and it's not having heritage and rural impacts as well. So I think that's a good thing that we're keen on supporting where it allows as well. Sorry.
And it's just really positive to hear there's such a constructive approach being taken to that as well, and in terms of that engagement with the users as well. That's really positive. And I have seen evidence myself of certainly the feedback on social media channels about these seizures and arrests, and that does help, I think, in terms of building trust and confidence with our citizens. And I'm glad we've had an opportunity to discuss that in our public meeting. That brings us to the end of the public section of our meeting.